Have you ever stood in your kitchen at 3 a.m., surrounded by the wreckage of everything you thought you were, and wondered if you'd ever feel alive again? Have you ever looked in the mirror and not recognized the broken person staring back? Well, let me tell you about the night David Richardson wanted to disappear forever, and how one simple decision at 5:45 a.m. saved his life. This isn't just a story about success. This is a story about resurrection. About a man who lost everything: his career, his marriage, his identity, his will to live, and discovered that the power to rebuild doesn't come from talent or luck or perfect timing. It comes from something much simpler, something you already have inside you right now. Picture this. It's 5:45 a.m. on a bitter February morning in Manchester. The kind of morning where your breath fogs the air and the world feels frozen in disappointment. Most adults are buried deep under duvets, postponing another day of obligations. But not David Richardson. He's already lacing up his running trainers, the same ones he bought 3 years ago when life still made sense. The soles are worn thin from months of pounding pavements, but David doesn't care. The local park stands like a cathedral of possibility in the pre-dawn darkness. Empty benches. No joggers except the security guard's German Shepherd that knows his routine by now. But David has something more valuable than a key. He has a promise. A covenant he made to himself 8 months ago when everything he thought he was crumbled to dust. His footsteps echo on the frosted path like a heartbeat refusing to quit. 5:45 a.m. every single day, rain or shine, hungover or clear-headed, Christmas morning or the anniversary of his divorce. David begins to run, and for the next hour, this cold, empty park becomes his sanctuary of rebirth. Let me paint you a picture of David's former world. 2 years ago, he was the man everyone envied. Corner office on the 23rd floor, BMW in the executive car park, house in the suburbs with a garden his wife Sarah loved, marketing director at one of Manchester's most prestigious agencies, the golden boy who turned campaigns into cultural moments, the man with the Midas touch who made brands sing and profits soar. He had it all: the career, the marriage, the respect, the future mapped out like a GPS route to happiness. Then the world shifted. The agency lost its biggest client, budget cuts became redundancies, and David, the untouchable star, suddenly found himself very, very touchable. "We're restructuring," his boss said, avoiding eye contact. "Your position is being eliminated." 22 years, gone in a 10-minute meeting. But that was just the first domino. Without warning, David's identity shattered like glass hitting concrete. No more important meetings, no more strategic decisions, no more reason to wear the expensive suits that now hung in his wardrobe like ghosts. Sarah tried to be supportive at first. "It's just a setback, love. You'll bounce back. You always do." But weeks became months. Rejections piled up like autumn leaves. The mortgage payments loomed. Arguments replaced conversations. "I don't recognize you anymore," Sarah said one devastating Tuesday evening. "The man I married had drive, had purpose, had something." She moved out that weekend. David stood in their empty house, his empty house now, surrounded by the debris of a life that no longer fit. He was 34 years old, unemployed, divorced, and utterly lost. The man who once commanded boardrooms now couldn't command respect from his own reflection. The night that changed everything. It was 2:47 a.m. on a Thursday in June when David hit absolute rock bottom. He was sitting on his kitchen floor, surrounded by empty beer bottles and rejection letters, contemplating whether the world would notice if he simply disappeared. His phone buzzed. A text from his younger brother Tom. "Saw your post on LinkedIn. Rough patch, mate. But remember, Dad always said, it's not how hard you fall, it's how consistently you get back up." Their father had died 5 years earlier, but his words echoed through the kitchen like a voice from beyond. Consistently you get back up. David looked at himself, really looked, unshaven, overweight, defeated. But somewhere in that broken man, a spark of the old David flickered. "Tomorrow," he whispered to the empty room, "I start over." That night, David made a decision that would resurrect everything. He wouldn't wait for motivation. He wouldn't wait for opportunities. He wouldn't wait for his life to make sense again. He would build himself back up. One day at a time, one choice at a time. The plan was brutally simple. 5:45 a.m., run for 1 hour. 7 a.m., read for 30 minutes, business, self-development, anything to sharpen his mind. 8 a.m., apply for jobs or work on freelance projects. No alcohol during the week, no excuses, ever. He made himself a promise, a sacred covenant written not on paper, but carved into his very essence. I will show up for my life, every day, no matter how I feel, until I become the man I'm meant to be. The Monastery of Sweat. What followed wasn't glamorous, it wasn't LinkedIn-worthy. It was raw, grinding, transformative work. David's alarm screamed at 5:30 a.m. While his body begged for more sleep, while depression whispered lies about worthlessness, his spirit pulled him upright. The run through empty Manchester streets became his meditation. The rhythm of his footsteps, his prayer. At first he could barely make it around the block without gasping. His knees ached, his lungs burned. His ego screamed that this was pathetic. But David had learned something profound in those dark months. Rock bottom is the perfect foundation to build upon. Week by week, his distance increased, his pace quickened, his body transformed. More importantly, his mind transformed. The morning runs became his thinking time, his planning time, his healing time. With each step, he wasn't just burning calories, he was burning away the victim mentality that had consumed him. What nobody knew, what David never spoke about during this time, was the daily war he fought against his own mind. Depression is a liar with a PhD in persuasion. Every morning it presented a compelling case for staying in bed. You're 34 and starting over. It's pathetic. Sarah was right to leave. You're worthless. No one's going to hire a has-been. But David developed a secret weapon. He stopped arguing with the voice. Instead, he just put on his trainers. He learned that you don't have to feel motivated to take action. You just have to take action, and motivation follows. Every morning at 5:45 a.m. became a small act of rebellion against despair. I may not control how I feel, he told himself, but I control what I do. 3 months in, something remarkable started happening. David's body was changing, leaner, stronger, more energetic. But the real transformation was deeper. He started sleeping better, thinking clearer, speaking with quiet confidence again. The reading habit had sharpened his mind. Industry blogs, leadership books, biographies of people who'd overcome setbacks. He began freelance consulting, small projects at first, but his reputation for reliability and insight grew. David's different now, a former colleague mentioned to another. More focused, more authentic. Even his brother Tom noticed during their weekly calls. "You sound like yourself again," Tom said. "Actually, you sound better than yourself." The unexpected opportunity. October arrived with typical British uncertainty, grey skies and the promise of change. David was 6 months into his routine when he received an unexpected call. "David Richardson? This is Emma Thompson from Catalyst Marketing. We met briefly at the Digital Summit 3 years ago." David remembered her. Brilliant strategist, recently promoted to CEO of a growing agency. "I've been asking around about freelance consultants," Emma continued. "Your name keeps coming up. People say you're not just talented, you're dependable. In our industry, that's rarer than gold." She offered him a project, then another, then a conversation about something more permanent. "We're looking for a creative director," she said over coffee in Spinningfields. "Someone who understands that consistent excellence beats sporadic brilliance. Someone who's proven they can rebuild from setbacks." David felt something he hadn't experienced in months. Hope mixed with readiness. "The position is yours if you want it," Emma said. "But I have one question. What's different about you now?" David smiled, thinking of all those 5:45 a.m. mornings. "I learned that showing up is half the battle. The other half is showing up again tomorrow." The job offer was validation, but it wasn't the real victory. The real victory was the man David had become. He hadn't just gotten back on his feet, he'd built better feet to stand on. His relationship with Sarah couldn't be repaired, but he'd learned something profound about love. You can't truly love someone else until you show love to yourself through consistent, caring actions. He started dating again, but differently now. No desperate attempts to impress, just authentic presence. "You're so calm," his new girlfriend Rachel observed. "So grounded." "I learned something," David replied. "Consistency creates character, and character creates confidence." The ultimate test. 18 months later, life threw David another curveball. His new agency faced a major crisis. Their biggest client threatened to leave, taking 40% of revenue with them. The old David would have panicked, would have worked himself into exhaustion, would have made desperate, scattered decisions. But this David, the one forged in 5:45 a.m. mornings, approached the crisis differently. He maintained his routine, still ran every morning, still read, still showed up fully present. "How are you so calm?" Emma asked during the crisis meetings. "Because I know something now," David replied. "Problems are temporary, principles are permanent. If I keep showing up consistently, keep doing the right things daily, everything usually works out." He was right. The crisis passed. The clients stayed. The agency grew stronger. The lesson that changes everything. Here's what David discovered, and what I want you to burn into your soul. Your life isn't defined by what happens to you. It's defined by what you do every single day after what happens to you. Consistency isn't just about building habits. It's about building identity. Every morning, you choose to show up for yourself. You're not just completing a task. You're proving to yourself that you're someone who keeps promises. And that person, the one who shows up when it's hard, who continues when it's lonely, who believes when others doubt, that person becomes unbreakable. The truth is this: you can lose your job, you can lose your marriage, you can lose your house, your savings, your social status, but you cannot lose the person you become through consistent daily commitment to your own growth. David Richardson wasn't born resilient. He became resilient by refusing to quit when quitting would have been easier. Every 5:45 a.m. alarm was a vote for the person he was becoming. Every run was a declaration that he wasn't done fighting. Every page he read was an investment in his future self. And that compound interest of daily discipline eventually paid dividends beyond his wildest dreams. The truth that sets you free. Maybe you're staring at the debris of dreams that didn't work out. Maybe you feel too old, too tired, too far behind to start over. Let me tell you what David would tell you. It's never too late to become who you're meant to be. But it happens one day at a time, one choice at a time, one 5:45 a.m. at a time. Champions aren't made in moments of glory. They're forged in moments of ordinary, unglamorous consistency when nobody's watching and everybody's sleeping. David's story isn't about running. It's about refusing to let circumstances write the final chapter of your life. It's about understanding that your comeback starts with coming back to yourself. Remember, the most powerful person in the world is the one who shows up for their own life every single day. Your alarm is waiting. Your future self is counting on you. What time will you set it for?